すげえなこれ。
He just spent more and more time in his room until Mom got him a job at the cannery.
ん？どっちにも行ける？で、ここは入ることはできないのか。すげえ、これ怖くない？でも安定してるのかなこれ。もうこれ開けられる？すごい。なんか探検してるみたい。この屋敷。いろんなとこあって楽しいわ。
Very familiar. That part of him lived on.
これか。
Dear Mrs. Finch, as Lewis's psychiatrist, I can understand your desire for an explanation. Trouble began in January, shortly after we convinced your son to seek treatment for substance abuse. Newly sober, I believe Lewis first noticed the monotony of his daily life. He kept working at the cannery. But in our
め
sessions,
ちゃ
I
くちゃ
saw
怖
the
いじゃ
same
んこれ。
behavior.
めっちゃ手切りそうじゃん。
His mind began to wander.
あ、これ自分で動かすの
I
か。
asked him to describe it. He said he started small.
歩合制なのかなこれは。溜まってってるよ魚が。
He'd feel his way about. Then something moved. Bats
コウモリ。
and toads.
ヒキガエル。こっちか。うわ、なんだこれ。
And things that have not names.
え、待って。何今の。名のない者たち。
He knew it was all in his head.
なんか鮭あるんだけど。あ、鮭これ。掴んでやんないといけないのか。
But he took it very seriously. I had hoped he'd find himself.
仕事を片付けないと気が済まね
But he found something more.
え。それ以上の。すごいなこれ。
Worried about him then. Daydreaming at the cannery. Become a model employee. Methodical, tireless, focused.
内面は分かんないからね、真面目に仕事してても。え、
I even encouraged him.
出た遺跡から。
It seemed very promising at first. He told me he'd made a new friend.
ワンちゃん。
On the edge of a city he named Lewis
これも切るやつか。
He built the city up slowly, brick by brick.
王様じゃん王様。
Then he made musicians.
どんどん人が集まっていくね。
And songs for them to play. He talked about starting a band.
ただミュージシャンの人って薬物やりがちだったりするよね。いや、やっちゃう人もいるってことね。全然全員とかじゃなくてさ。いや、怖っ。
He no longer spoke at the cannery. Crowds, even the stones under his feet, were all in his imagination. So he could do whatever he wished. He held an election for mayor. And he won.
すげえ。
They
かき分
begged
け
him
て。
to stay, but his mind was already wandering. It became a game for him.
ゲーム、まあ確かにもともとゲームっぽかった
Conquer a city, then immediately push on. New Louisville.
なんかこれ面白そうだなこのゲーム。痛い痛い痛いじゃね
St. Louis. He started drifting away from our
え。いや
reality.
避けんのむずっ。
Minneapolis. Until one day he forgot to go home from the cannery. Even as his mother pleaded with him, part of Louis kept sailing on.
もう頭おかしくなってるやん。聞こえてねえよ声。手が見えんだけど。
In Louisburg, he heard rumors of a
え、なにこれ。
handsome queen.
あ、間違えて言っちゃったんだけど、間違えてっていうか、そのまま言っちゃったんだけど、勢いで。おー、危ない危ない危ない。
The queen was on her own quest for
次こっち行くか。
sinister serpents. He followed the sound of her harp.
ちょっともう魚切んのやめていいかな。でもこの魚あると集中できないんだよね。どっちも操作しないといけないの普通にむずいな。
His chase led him to a golden palace east of the sun and west of the moon.
黄金の宮殿。
Even then, his logic remained sound.
本当か。この女王めちゃくちゃ逃げるやん。なんか招待してるっていうよりなんか逃げてるように感じるんだけど。
But he was so proud of having created. In his own eyes, he'd become something greater than a king. For someone who'd never known success in the real world, I think it was overwhelming. That the real Louis was not the one chopping salmon.
動きがすっげえなんか安っぽいんだけど、このゲーム内の。
My imag, he told me. It was hard to argue with him.
え、こっから出んの。あ、入んの。え、ああ、工場から出たってことか。
He began to forget the world we know.
え、これあの工場なのか本当に。
I think it pained him to remember Louis, the cannery worker.
自分が嫌だったのか、その現実にいる自分が。え、何しようと
He
してんの。
began to despise the man with a royal contempt.
これ自分だよね、だって。
Thought I could save him. Even after he said he was being crowned king over all the lands of wonder. The palace would be packed with his companions.
すげえなこれ。なんか屋敷にいるだけなのにすげえいろんなとこ行ってんだけど。顔がないなでも。
Including the wise Calico who'd insisted on advising him.
こいつか。なんか目怖いんだけど。あそこに行けばいいんだね。
His queen waited, holding his crown. There was There's only one thing left to do.
なんか鮭がいっぱいあるんだけど。なんかディズニーのあれみたいだね。ラストみたいだね。冒険に行って帰ってきてみたいな。
Bend down his head.
いや、これはちょっとギロチンみたいな感じに見えるんですが。
And the rest I think you know. Mrs. Finch, your son was a kind man who will be missed by all of us who knew him.
そっか。
My mom told me to start packing. Until the day before we left to tell Edie. I'm not sure if she wanted to make it easier or harder.
すげえなんか階段登るの早くね。
I wish we'd stayed. But I understand why we left. My mom ended up leaving everything behind for a long time. Maybe it should have come sooner.
でまたさらに登るのか。
But it had to end one way or another. All that's left now is to tell you about that last
てか
night.
今更だけどすげえ綺麗だよね。部屋が。なんか汚れてるというか物はいっぱいあるんだけど綺麗っていう。
That whole last day, Edie just watched us pack and didn't say a word. Until supper, when she raised her glass and said,
To our final night together, and all our final nights apart.
あ、言ってたね最初に。
You know what I said about alcohol. Some of
こ
your
の夜でみん
medications
ないな
are
くなっちゃ
very
ったんでしょ。
specific.
I left a present for you in the hallway. Why don't you go
なんか
open?
俺の声も入ってみんなの声も入って集中できないか
I'm
もしれない
sorry,
からちょっと
you're
黙る
right. We're all leaving tomorrow. Let's just enjoy our last...
I'm not leaving.
Edith, you're excused.
これあれかエディスか。
The power had been shut off that morning, but Edie always had plenty of candles. When my mom set up the library, I don't think she knew about the other
火事になんない
reasons.
この木製の家でさ。
Key to it.
本ありすぎだな本当に。よくこんなろうそくいっぱいいろんなところに置いとけんな。
You're afraid of isn't going to end when you leave the house. Edith has a right to know these stories.
My children are dead because of your stories. I think it's best if Edith and I leave tonight.
なんか知ってるんだ。母さんと
We'll have the nursing home
Watcha.
send a van for you in the morning. Okay?
いやヒストリー・オブ・ザ・フィンチだって。
Dear Edith, there's so many stories I wish I could tell you, but there's only time for one. This is about what happened on the night you were born. That night, the tide went way, way out. It was the first and last time I ever saw the old house aground.
昔の家なのあ
There'd
れ。
been an earthquake out in the middle of the ocean. They called it the lowest tide in 1,000 years.
いやでもすごい
God,
ね。
it smelled awful.
本当に
You know,
潮引きすぎでしょ。
I've seen the house every day of my life. I thought I'd go back to it when the fog rolled in.
ちょっとねラストまで ちょっと録画をし忘れててね。もう一回ここからやるんだけど、ずっと霧の中なんだよね。
I started seeing things.
鹿がいた。
Things I'd forgotten had ever existed.
存在することさえ忘れていた。影がいっ
When
ぱ
I
い
saw them, they felt like old friends.
転がっちゃってさ。
That night, a lot of things came back to me. Or
見えてき
maybe
た。
I came back to them.
もうはちゃんとある。
Things I can't explain, but that I need you to try and...
Edith, what are you doing in here?
It's mine.
Edith!
Mom, you're gonna rip
途
it. Let's
中なんだよ。読ませてくれ。
I kicked
Oh.
and screamed, but Mom dragged me to the car.
Eh?
I never saw Great Grandma Edie again.
ばあちゃん。ばあ、
Came to pick her up, but she was already gone.
あの家誰もいなくなっちゃう。
After that, we moved around a lot. We both tried to make the best of it. A few years went by. My mom didn't like to talk about it, but she started getting sick a lot. The rest happened pretty quickly. She got better for a while, and then she didn't. And then I was alone. Last Finch left alive,
そうだね、エディスだけしか残ってないっていう。
until I found out about you.
いや、マジここめっちゃびっくりした。
I'm still not sure what to tell you about all this.
いや、どういうことって。あなたって何っ
If
て。
we lived forever, maybe we'd have time to understand things. But as it is, I think the best we can do is try to open our eyes.
なんか途中で言ってたよね、そういえばあなたって。
Appreciate how strange and brief all of this is.
ちょっと何言ってんだろうって思ったけどさ、
This
そういう
film
こと
was
だったんだ
supposed to。be for you,
あなたのためのはずだった。
but now I hope you'll never see it. I just want to meet you and tell you all these stories myself. But I guess if you're reading this now, things didn't work out that way.
うーん。
This is where your story begins. I'm sorry I won't be there to see it. It's a lot to ask, but I don't want you to be sad that I'm gone. I want you to be amazed that any of us ever had a chance to be here at all. Good luck.
エディス。俺が操作してたのはエディスだったんだけど、そのエディスですらもういなかった。